Ernie Almond, another great guy on Three Counties Radio. We used to have a good laugh, Ernie and me, and here's an extract from one of his shows.
Well, this is a new little idea that we've come up with. I say we, it's myself and my very good friend Pete Perry. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Ernie. All right.
Yes, we're okay. And we're starting in Pete's neck of the woods, really, because Pete lives in Stevenage and we're at Knebworth. We're just behind the main house. It's wonderful, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's lovely, and we're just sort of walking down this sort of lime walk here.
Yeah.
And the lime trees have been bollarded at the top.
Pardon?
It's bollarded.
Have they really?
It's where they're cut right back to the trunk, more or less.
And that's called bollarding.
Bollarding, yeah.
Oh, right, thank you.
Okay.
Thought I was going to have to cut that piece. Now, just to explain a little more what we're doing, we're going to have a look at three gardens today, three gardens that you can come and have a look at. They're all open to the public, and we're going to look at them now for the spring, and hopefully, if we're spared, Pete...
And if I'm still alive by then.
Yes, we'll come back in the summer and again in the autumn. And as I said, we're starting with the gardens of Knebworth House, and we're in a part here, it's called the Sunken Garden, and a little piece of paper that they've given me here, Pete, says, Sir Edwin Lutyens designed the present layout in 1910, and the main features are the twin avenues and a central square of pollarded limes.
Pollarded lime, there you go. I told you, didn't I? I told you. And of course, lime is one of the trees that has mistletoe growing on it, you know? Like lime, apple, there's a few that mistletoe will grow because it's what they call a saprophyte.
Yeah.
It's mistletoe. It's not. Yeah. No,
that's right.
Yeah, and it lives on the sap of the tree.
But I thought it was just apple trees. Was that you told me?
No, and limes as well. Yeah. There's a few trees that it will grow on, and what happens? See, the birds take the little berries. Yeah. They're sticky. They're good, nice and tasty. So what they do, they cry to another tree and then rub their beak on the tree, and then any cracks, the seed goes in and starts growing another tree.
There you are. Well, we walk on. There are two lime avenues, one on either side of this lovely lawn. I say lovely. I'm sure it will be later on. It's as are all lawns after all that bad weather. They're just about coming back to life now, aren't they?
Well, they are, and of course, in a lot of these old estates, you find that there's a lot of moss in the grass. I mean, like if it's a bowling alley or something, you don't want that. You want good quality Cumberland turf or something. But with something like this, moss actually helps to make it green, so that when you do get a drought, hardly that today, it's raining, but the moss will then show up the green in the lawn, so it's not too bad, really.
It's well worth coming and having a look at the gardens in all seasons, really, isn't it, in places like this?
It is, yeah, and I mean, the spring is one of my favourite times of the year. But
why is that?
We are a bit late, because you get so many bright flowers, you know, the daffodils and the snowdrops, and the reason for that, of course, is that because it's usually a bit early in the season, the flowers have got to look bright to attract any flying insects, so they can spot them a mile off, you see. Like
it's a mine of information. I didn't realise that. You're being spied on by a couple of ducks in the very ancient old pond in the centre of this lawn. Look.
That's quackers, isn't it, really?
All right, so I presume that pond has been there since 1910, when the garden was designed.
I think so, by the look of it, I think so, yeah.
Up the steps out of the sunken garden, we're going towards what I thought was a maze, but it's a sort of collection of box hedges.
It is, yeah, they're box hedges, yeah. And of course here we've got the rose garden where we're standing now, but of course the roses, we'll come back and we'll be able to see those in full bloom.
I noticed we're just at the very beginning of April and they've just been pruned.
So that'll encourage the growth for later on in the summer.
Yeah.
They're mostly, I think, hybrid tea roses. Yeah. Anyone that's interested in roses, the odd floribunda.
I'm always confused because there's climbing roses, there's obviously standard roses, and there's roses like these little ones in the beds, and then there's the other type, but not climbing, but they grow fairly high. I've got one of those at home, and I've no idea I'm supposed to prune it. It's not a climber, but it's a very tall, it sort of flowers above my fence almost.
Yeah, they're rambling roses, which again you want to cut that down to about a third.
I'll run home today and do that.
Do it, yeah, without outward pointing spurs. Spurs are the buds.
Rambling rose.
Rambling rose. Oh yeah, who was that? Don Partridge.
Was it?
Wasn't it? Was it? I don't know.
You say Don Partridge for everything. As you walk out of the sunken garden, you come up to these beautiful, beautiful hedges. So that's the rose garden, and Pete's just pointed out. Look what's down here.
Now this is what they call Chionodoxa. Now this should have been flowering about a month ago. In actual fact, it's the Chionodoxa is Latin for glory of the snow, because they actually grow when the snow's on the ground normally. But for some reason or other, they're flowering now.
They look a bit like bluebells.
They're very similar. They're similar. They're sort of the same family as the bluebells. Yeah.
Well, we'll move on because eventually, you know, we're going to come to the dinosaur trail. My goodness me.
No, that's me. I'm here already, Heard.
Perfect for us two old dinosaurs. Let's walk on. Well, that's funny. Just straight through the box hedges, and look where we've come to.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's the gold garden, is it? They call
Yes,
it?
it's called the Gold Garden. It contains a variety of gold and yellow leaved and flowered plants with a central fountain. Well, the fountain's not on this morning.
This is interesting, Ern, because all these little box hedges, you see that?
Yeah.
Actually planted in box shapes, which is
Yeah.
quite appropriate, is what in the Elizabethan times they used to call a knot garden, because they were little knots of hedges enclosing little parts where you put different plants in.
Yeah, which they got here, and they
Which they've got
they
here.
specialise in this particular garden with things with gold, either gold flowers or gold leaves, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. You got a euonymus over here, which has got golden leaves, and the box itself is a golden leaf variety rather than the normal green leaf. So it's early in the year, so a lot of the plants that we'll see in the summer will be coming up later. But look, there's my favourites, the old English woodland primrose. Now, I don't think you can beat them, to be honest with you.
No. You know, you see them in shops and garden centres for sale now, loads of brilliant colours, purples and things. Are those a modern innovation of this?
Yes, they are. What we call polyantheses
Yeah.
nowadays is started as a cross between the wild primrose and the wild cowslip.
Yeah.
But then it was introduced a European variety of the primrose, which had pink or red, purple flowers, and then they got all the colours from those. And of course, they've been bred. And to me, they're too big and brassy. You know, I prefer the little wild ones. To be
The old
honest with
ones.
you, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
We've just walked past the maze. So there's a maze here. It was locked up. They wouldn't let us in. I could have lost you there.
Well, you could have gone. Amazing, that is, isn't it? And then we come across the bridge here, didn't we?
Now, and this, by the way, this is called the Ponds and Horace Garden. Horace Hoo, I'm not quite sure. Although there was originally one pond, apparently there's now two. One is ornamental and the other more wild. And speaking of ornamental in this garden, Pete, look at these.
Oh, they're beautiful, aren't they? Well, that looks like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
And what they've done, instead of where they've chopped down trees, they've left the stumps, and those have been carved by our wood carver.
That's right. That is quite amazing the way they do that, isn't it? I always admire these guys that carve from tree trunks, you know.
And somewhere in this area, there's an evergreen oak. Can you spot it?
An evergreen oak.
Anyway, this evergreen oak, when we find it, was given by Queen Victoria in 1897 to her godson, Victor, 2nd Earl of Lytton, on his coming of age.
Of course, the Lytton family.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
that's
see,
right.
It
Yeah.
all ties up. And I think we found it, haven't we, Pete?
Yes, this is it.
Well,
we
the
were looking-
remains of it, really, isn't it?
Well, we were looking for a larger one, but it looks as though at some time it's been cut down.
Yeah.
And
And if we-
as opposed to the English oak, which is Quercus robur, the English oak is deciduous; it loses its leaves, whereas this one, of course, keeps its leaves on all year.
Where's this from, then, if it's not an English
So
oak?
Turkey, actually,
Really?
it comes from Turkey, yeah, and it
Yeah.
stays evergreen. The leaves don't look like an oak leaf.
No.
And what you would expect an oak leaf to look like, the serrated edges, this is looks more like
It's almost close to a holly, isn't it? But,
holly,
but not
yeah.
prickly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Very similar. The leaves are shiny, and that way it sort of doesn't lose so much moisture.
Here, let's go through this door, Pete, see what's in there.
Okay.
Ooh, look, a walled garden.
Oh wow, walled garden. Now this reminds me of when I was at Offaly. I used to work in a walled garden there
Yeah.
many years ago in the 60s. Yeah.
And a member of the gardening team, Paul, is here with us. Paul, at this time of the year, you're replanting this garden, aren't you?
Yes.
But I think you're going to replant it in a different way to what it was before, aren't you?
Yeah, there used to be a lot of herbs in this area, so we've cut back a lot of the herbs just so they're like edging plants now. We transferred a lot of those to the herb garden next door, and we're going to have a lot of more veg in this area because so many people are interested in that. They grow your own.
So people can come up and have a look at yours and get ideas, really.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, and a lot of stuff in pots as well, so people can grow it on their patios and So.
Well, let me just quickly look at the history of this walled garden, this ornamental vegetable and culinary herb garden, which it has been up until now, Pete, designed in 1999 and laid out in the year 2000. But the walls around it are a lot older than that, so it's been a walled garden for some time, I would think, don't you?
Well, it looks like it. It certainly goes back a century or two, I should think. Don't you? 150 years, maybe.
Well, they're lovely gardens. I wish we had time to walk around them all, don't you, Pete? At this time of the year, it is worth coming to see them, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is, because you've got all these. Look at all the daffodils that are out now, and there's still some snowdrops that we've noticed, haven't we?
Yeah.
The kind of doctors I told you about.
On the side of this garden, in fact, there is a whole field of daffies. It's just the right time to come and have a look at them.
Yes, it is. Yeah, this year is late to what it normally would be.
Yeah.
But,
so over this bank holiday weekend, it's a good time to come up and see them.
Oh, it is. Yeah, April, May. Then the bluebells will start coming out and so on. You know, it's really.
And don't think that it's not a place for the children, because further on, and I daren't take Peter there because they might think he's one of the exhibits. There's the set within the wilderness garden in a natural setting. It's an educational trail through prehistoric history, and it features 70 life-size sculptures ranging from Stone Age man to the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
It's on
And that's
famous.
called
I'm here already. Stone Age man, I heard.
the Dino Trail. Well, there we are.
Trail, yeah.
That's a brief look at Knebworth House Gardens, and well worth a look, as is the house, of
Oh,
course.
it certainly is. I mean, the gardeners, you know, would love all the plants and trees and shrubs and so on, and of course the kids are going to enjoy the Dino Trail. So,
Wonderful place.
everything for the family really here, don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to have a look at a garden in Bedfordshire. Now, this is Hertfordshire, we're off to Bedfordshire.
Right, off we go.
Well, we've travelled from Knebworth over the border, I was going to say, into Bedfordshire, and we're at Luton Hoo, the fabulous Luton Hoo. Look at this house, Pete.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hey?
yeah.
Take some heating, though, I would have thought.
I'll trust you to think of that.
Imagine doing the housework in there.
Well, you wouldn't be doing the housework. You're a horticulturalist.
The gardens, I'd love to do these. Though.
Now,
Look at them.
we're standing here. I think we're going to join us in a few moments is Keith, the head gardener, and he'll tell us a little more. We're standing with our back to the house and facing, this is their sort of formal garden, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely a formal
there are
garden, yeah.
thousands of acres of parkland, I suppose you'd call
That's
it,
right,
wouldn't you?
yeah. And we've got borders around here and little seats, and it's really formal. I mean, it's like a type of Italian type of garden. This, what I would
Now, I
call
seem
it.
to remember that they spent a long, long time putting these gardens, as you can see further down when we wander down in a moment, back to what they were. I don't know about originally, but what they were in the earlier days.
I can see that they put a lot of work into them, you know. And of course, you see the urns there, Ern.
Yeah.
They've got the flowers in, which is nice.
Yeah, lovely.
It's a Grecian urn.
Thank you. We won't do that joke if you don't mind.
that one, no.
But we'll come down the steps, the beautiful steps. I just love this garden so much.
Oh, it's beautiful, yeah.
Do you know much about sort of historical gardens?
Oh yeah, I love the history of gardening. Actually, there is a society called the Garden History Society.
there?
Actually, and I've written for them on occasions
Really?
because I like a lot of the old Elizabethan plants and things, Victorian plants and so on. You know. Because it's not just the gardening, the plants have become trendy in different eras.
Now, we were talking at Knebworth about the tall box hedges, rather like the ones they have in mazes.
Yep.
Now, I always think of a box hedge as being privet, but of course it can be various other things. Now, that's certainly not privet. What's that?
Well, a true box hedge is box, which is a plant. There is a plant called box, and they're little tiny leaves. They're it's almost a miniature shrub, but they grow quite big, but you can trim them. But this is actually yew.
Oh, it's so beautifully trimmed. Now,
It's
we're
beautifully
talking of a
trimmed,
hedge here, folks. I suppose that one's about 8 or 9 feet high, isn't it?
Yep, about that I should think.
And
yeah.
it edges this formal garden with beautiful, beautiful lawns. Once again, it's a bit early in the season. What do you think these flower beds around the outside of this will look like come the summer?
Oh, there'll be a blaze of colour. It will. It'll be lovely in the summer. I mean, it's just coming into leaf now, but of course it's a bit short of flowers at the moment, and most people like flowers.
That's why we're coming round in the spring just to see what's going on.
Ability Brown, who was the daddy of landscape gardening, he said flowers are fleeting things, which is why on a lot of these traditional landscapes now you get trees and shrubs and grass. The landscaping is all important because it's a sculpture rather than and other flowers just sort of paint the landscape, if you like, afterwards.
I've got an idea that his name is linked to this very garden.
I'm sure it looks very much to me like a Capability Brown landscape to me. I'm sure he must have, originally.
What's that plant there called? This one with the...
Virginia.
Oh, is that the one that comes up with pink little?
That's right.
flowers?
Yeah, like an umbrella of flowers.
Well,
yeah.
weirdly enough, Pete, I don't know how to look after it, but
Oh, right.
I moved into a house and I've got a load of those, and they're already flowering. Mine are. So
Well,
I've
of
beaten
course
Luton Hoo.
Yes, the thing is, out here in Luton Hoo, of course, it's very open, and so you do get what you call microclimate. So if you've got
Yeah.
a smaller garden, perhaps with a fence or something, it will be slightly warmer than it would be out here,
Yeah.
and so you get that microclimate. So the flowers will blossom a bit
So,
earlier.
I'm not very clued up on shrubs. So what sort of looking after does this take?
Well, not a lot really, because it can live in quite poor soil, and as long as it's left established and just kept weed free, it should survive. Really, they can even go through drought. Virginia is quite a tough plant.
So if you'd like to buy a Virginia for your garden, I have to tell you, it has really colourful, large leaves, which are green most of the year and turn to sort of reddish colour, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah, and that's one of my particular likings is plants that have got leaf colour as well. Just the green ones can be a bit boring because when the flowers are not there, you've still got the leaf colour, which is handy.
Hang on a minute, Pete, because Keith's arrived, and Keith is one of the gardeners. Could be the head gardener, I'm not absolutely sure. Hello, Keith.
Hello there.
Are you the head gardener
I
here?
certainly am.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to demote you.
No worries.
Pete's just mentioned Capability Brown. Now, I had in the back of my mind that he had some sort of link with this estate. Is that true?
Yeah, he certainly did. He was here in 1762, I think, as a 21-year-old, and I believe it was the largest commission he'd undertook by that stage.
When I saw you a long time ago, a couple of years ago, I think we did a little piece, didn't we, Keith? And you'd just finished, really, sort of putting these gardens back to how they were some time ago.
Well, I don't know about finished. I think we'd just started, really.
Well, you never finished, do you?
No, that's certainly right. We were a couple of years down the 10-year plan, so obviously it's moved on leaps and bounds since then.
Yeah. But are you intending to keep these gardens back as they could have been seen 100 years ago or however long? I don't know.
Not necessarily as it was 100 years ago, because it's evolved from that. The main structure is as it was in 1902, 1903 when this particular herbaceous and topiary garden was built. So it's just evolving it on from that.
Pete, what do you think of this lovely topiary garden that we're looking down on?
That's beautiful, isn't it? I do like this sort of design. Again, it sort of harks back to the Elizabethan, the actual design, doesn't it? Period, sort of the knot garden type of thing. But I can see what Keith means, that you've got to move on. You can't live in the past, if you like. It's nice to remember back, a bit of nostalgia, but things have got to move on, obviously, and that applies with gardening too.
Which is what they're doing.
Yes,
Of course,
exactly, yeah.
apart from these wonderful formal gardens, Keith, you've got quite a large estate to look after too, which is a different kettle of fish, isn't it?
It's about 1,000 acres in total. Obviously, we've got the golf course now, which is 280 acres, I believe, 300 acres of woodland, the 70-acre lakes.
Now, we all have different reasons to come here, mainly these days to visit the house or to eat in the house or to come to one of their functions. There's some opera happening here shortly. But you were here for a different reason altogether recently, weren't you, Pete?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I put my other hat on. The supporting actor thing for the Wolfman. We were here back in October.
Were you the
filming a
Wolfman?
few- No, I wasn't the Wolfman.
thinking of
I
your
know
whiskers.
I'm hairy, but no, Benicio del Toro was,
Yeah.
and then we had Sir Anthony Hopkins here as well. But we didn't use the house, not in the scenes I was in anyway. It was the church and pathways with the funeral cortege come along.
And people who have lived these parts many a long year, longer than you, Keith, will remember there was a huge event on the lake here at Luton Hoo, and I think it was Anne Ziegler and Webster Booth, special guest stars, and they were all on boats and they presented Merry England or some similar musical for some occasion on the lake.
That's right. I'm still in contact with the old estate manager who lives just off the estate now. He bought a farm when he retired. He often talks about the event down on the lake, and
It was
all
huge.
it
I've
was
only seen
massive.
photographs of it, I hasten to add.
That's right. I think it was in the early 50s, was it not?
Possibly, yeah.
So, yes,
And
that happened.
I don't think we've had anything quite as big as that since. But look at the sun's come out on us, Pete. We thought it was going to be raining all day.
Yeah.
And
Anne Ziegler and Webster Booth. I wanted to sing like Webster Booth. I did, and I was only 11
you sing more
years
like a
old.
phone booth. You do.
Thanks.
Have you got occasions coming up where people can come purely to come and see your wonderful gardens?
Yes, we've got another Gardens Open Day. I believe it's on the 13th of June this year, and then there are various open days for the opera and other bits and pieces in the pipeline, but they're all on the website.
Well, we're having a look round at early spring really, so obviously when people come in the middle of June it's going to be a different view altogether for them, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly will. It changes monthly at the moment. By the looks of it, we'll be having daffodils in flower well into April and probably last till the beginning of May, which is quite rare.
Well, we're going to move on to a place in Buckinghamshire now, Waddesdon Manor. But before we leave here in this lovely topiary garden, if anybody has a garden that wouldn't be as large as this, but they wanted to get into a little bit of topiary, have either of you got any tips for people just trying to start off?
Always remember, it's a bit of an old-fashioned Luton Hoo quirk. We always start to cut the box hedge on Derby Day.
That's the best tip ever. Write that down, Pete.
Yeah, I'll write it down, definitely.
Right, off to Waddesdon Manor. Well, from Luton Hoo to Waddesdon Manor is quite a drive, but I have to tell you, Pete, it's well worth the drive, is it not?
Oh, it's beautiful. We're standing in the Daffodil Valley here, aren't we? And talk about a host of golden daffodils, eh?
Absolutely wonderful. We're recording this obviously just before the Easter break. People coming up here over the bank holidays because the gardens will be open. Imagine what these daffodils are going to look like with a bit of sun on them.
They're best probably because a lot of you see there's still lots of buds here. So I could even see a bumblebee gone to sleep in one of the daffodils.
There's a lot of different sorts of daffodils, even amongst this crowd. Well, I can see different ones. And now you're the horticulturalist. What do you make of those?
They're beautiful. There's a lot of King Alfred, which are the mainstay of the daffodils, really, the big trumpet ones. But there's a lot of Poeticus and Pheasant Eye and all sorts.
What's a Pheasant Eye daffodil?
A Pheasant Eye daffodil is the one with the small cup. If you have a look around, Ern, I know our listeners can't see them, but
the small cup is a slightly darker, almost an orange.
Right, like an orange colour, whereas the King Alfred is the big yellow trumpet daff.
Is this your first visit ever to Waddesdon Manor?
It is, yes. I've never been here before.
So, as a horticulturalist, and with your horticulturalist hat on, I know you have many hats, Pete. What were your first impressions when we drove in?
Oh, beautiful. I thought the landscape itself is superb. I mean, just the main structure of it, the trees, the plantings, and the landscape itself was wonderful.
The main difference between this and Luton Hoo, I think, is that the hundreds of acres that they've both got, but Waddesdon Manor, it's all dells and valleys and hills, and it's not quite so level, is it?
No, it isn't. It's very hilly, up and down, which is, of course, makes for a great landscape, a brilliant vista. I mean, as we walked in here, the vista there, was incredible. And of course, the garden we came into earlier on.
That's right. That's at the back of the house. You must, if you come here, do not miss it. I think they call it the potette.
The potette, yeah. And of course, they're just now, while we're here, they're planting all the pansies and some of the early summer bedding. Yeah. And of course, they're all on raised beds, which is rather different, so you get this wonderful effect. The kind of thing I used to do with carpet bedding back in Blackpool.
What is carpet bedding?
Carpet bedding is where you make a design out of small plants. True carpet bedding is with letters and everything. You can put a coat of arms or stuff. But this is just done with flowers.
Seaside places, you often see the clock done in it.
You do. Edinburgh is famous for its clock, and I used to do all that, many years ago. And in Letchworth, actually. I did it in Letchworth.
Oh, right.
Well, they don't do it anymore since I left. They stopped doing the carpet bedding.
You better go back. But getting back to Waddesdon Manor, that carpet bedding of pansies with all those brilliant colours, there must be tens of thousands of plants there. There must be.
There is. There certainly is. I mean, when I used to do the carpet bedding in Blackpool and in Letchworth, in one display I'd put 25,000 plants in just one bed.
That'd wear out my dibber.
Yeah, it did. But of course, I'd have a gang of guys with me. I noticed the guy here. He's all on his own. The poor guy, and he's planting these all up on his own.
Actually, unbeknown to you, because you got your varifocals on, down the other end of that garden there were 3 or 4 others.
Oh well, there was a gang. You usually take about 3 or 4 guys.
But we have noticed the gardeners here are ever so posh, aren't they?
They are. It's a better class of gardener, I mean, like in Waltham, where I came from, we talk like that. that, you know, but up
you
here, it's
and you
very
still do.
Aylesbury.
Now, what do I see up there? Looking, this is still part of Daffodil Valley, but there's some white ones up there. Are they narcissus or are they still daffodils?
Yeah, well, they're all actually narcissus. The daffodils are just the trumpet daffodils, that's all. But most of these are small, like minnow and things like that, which are miniature daffodils, you'll notice. They're much smaller. And triandris, which is the white ones, they more hang down more. Planted underneath them, of course, is myosotis, which is forget-me-not.
And
Which,
that
really throws it out.
really I was going to say that really sets it off, because the yellow daffies, yellow and cream daffies there, against that blue, it's just fabulous.
Oh, it's fabulous, yeah.
And the estate itself, there's an aviary here, by the way, if you want to come along and see. Do come to Waddesdon Manor if you're in the area. Hundreds of acres here of beautiful trees. I don't know whether you've got any particular points you want to make of the woodland here.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coniferous fir trees, more or less, you know, that produce cones. There's loads of them. There's Leylandii, there's Atlantic over there.
What are these golden coloured ones here?
They're cedar, golden cedar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There are trees here from every part of the world, I think.
Oh,
if you travel a garden.
I think there probably is. I should think that there's probably like plant hunters have probably bought in, and probably people that have owned this place at different periods have actually created an arboretum of different trees from all over the world, probably. You know, certainly from Europe, but
well, we're going to come back to Waddesdon Manor, as we are Luton Hoo and Knebworth in the summer. So what do you expect to see here when we come back in the next season, really?
Well, of course, there'll be different bedding now in the garden we saw just now. Most of the daffodils then will have gone later on. Obviously, they won't be there; it'll just be grass. But it still looks very beautiful.
Of course, the trees will all be out by then.
But the trees will be out, and there'll probably be blossom on some of the trees as well, and the leaves will be out on them. So it's going to look quite spectacular. And I noticed there's a few little island beds here and there that they've planted in, like the crossroads of the pathway. And of course, they're going to have things like geraniums and things like that. You know, maybe impatiens or something like that, busy lizzies. So it's going to look
That's a word I've learned.
There you go, you've learned that. That's busy lizzies.
Thank you.
Right, and they will be sort of planted in all these little beds.
We're walking back towards the house, and obviously the manor itself is absolutely spectacular, isn't it? Of all the country houses we've got, this must be one of the most attractive.
Oh, it's got to be. And what you pointed it out, and as we came past there, was the ivy that's growing up the wall. It doesn't just cover the wall, but it's trained into a lattice work.
So these are more tropical plants, these, and they're doing quite well, aren't they?
Oh, they will grow in this country, yeah. You've got the fan palm or Chusard palm over there, and there's an agave there, which is like a tropical, subtropical plant. But it is looking beautiful, and in the summer I can see. I mean, even now, already it's beginning to look spectacular and very bright.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll come back in the summer.
We will indeed, Ern, yeah.
They're getting ready for a very busy weekend. In fact, I even noticed they are even combing the gravel paths.
It is something. They are actually doing it over there now, and of course that will keep the weeds out of it and just keep it looking fresh.
Well, Pete, thanks for coming with me and explaining about all the plants. Can we make a date for the summer and then again the autumn?
We will indeed, yes,
We'll do it all again, and we hope that it's not raining on us next time.
Well, let's hope so, yeah. You get your tan from standing in the English rain, Ern.